Coming up on today's episode, we take a look at Nic Cage's new horror movie, Arcadian. Stay tuned. Welcome to Scary World, where we walk you through the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I am your host, Arturo Padilla.
Hi.
For those of you just joining us, we have one major rule around here: no spoilers. Now that we got that out of the way, there are 5 categories: production, story, ensemble, horror, and legacy. Each category can score up to 2 points.
Showtime.
Per IMDb, the synopsis goes: a father and his twin teenage sons fight to survive in a remote farmhouse at the end of the world. This movie as a whole looks good. Director Benjamin Brewer does some good things and he does some bad things. For the most part, Brewer is able to successfully compose some solid shots, but he does get carried away with his handheld technique. There is too much camera motion during certain sequences of the movie, and it becomes a hindrance. There's no rhyme or reason for the shakiness of the camera. It's just a poor decision. And it happens way too often, unfortunately. It happens right in the beginning of the movie. Off the bat, you get a lot of unfocused camera technique. Not like we saw in Monkey Man, where ultimately it's half unfocused, but then turns into something. And in Monkey Man, the camera techniques used had a lot of symbolism and meaning behind them as to what the character was going through. Here, unfortunately, those decisions are just poor decisions. And as I mentioned, it happens quite often, unfortunately. Besides that, the movie does look good. There's some gorgeous landscape shots in this movie. There is a lot of landscape stuff in this movie, and it's very well shot. It's very well lit. There's a lot of night shooting here, and it does look good for the most part. Especially when you're down in one of the caves. The lighting is not optimal there, but you can see the action, you can tell what's going on, and you follow the story very well, especially through all the heavy action sequences in the dark. And for production and that shaky camera work, this movie gets a solid 1. The story and the script were written by Michael Nillen. This is his second feature script, and he does a solid job with this slow burn. The story is well written and the acts flow well. There's not much exposition bogging down this movie, but the second act does drag a little bit. With that said though, we do get a very solid third act here. It amps up the action up to 11, and we get a lot of those monsters, a lot of the violence, a lot of the brutality, and all of the action really come in the last 30 minutes or so of this movie. We do get some monster action, a little bit sprinkled here and there, but I do wish they did a lot more in the second act, where they build these characters up a little bit and we find out a little bit more about them. As mentioned, it does drag a little bit there, but I wish they would have added some monster action in order to liven up the sequences there. I'm not talking about crazy, full-on spectacle like we get in the third act. But I did want to see at least some more victims or some more of these monsters either leaving their stuff behind or in the middle of a kill or something along those lines. And for story, this movie gets a solid 1. The entire cast does a good job with their respective roles. Nic Cage does a solid job in support, but this movie is driven by the 2 brothers. Both of these young actors, Maxwell Jenkins and Jaden Martell, who play Joseph and Thomas respectively, do a great job with their characters.
Hey Tom, what's so special about the Rose Farm? You're not there?
Hey. Hey, stop! Stop it! Stop it! Stop!
They anchor this film successfully, and they help keep the audience engaged throughout the entire movie, especially in the second act, where we get a lot more exposition and there's a bit more of a lull in the story because of natural development. These 2 brothers are the emotional core of this movie, and we live and die with them as they go. And they do a great job with their roles. They're not beefy or meaty roles, but they execute their dialogue so well, they execute their chemistry and their dynamics so well that it is something to shine a spotlight on, because these young actors are definitely the future of Hollywood, and they are showcasing their talent in none other than our beautiful genre of horror here, and they do a fantastic job. And for that awesome job, this movie gets a solid 2 for ensemble. This film showcases some good use of blood and gore.
They're coming up from underneath us. So break it in a second. You need to trust me.
Some of it is practical, but there's a hefty amount of CG blended into the movie, especially when it pertains to the creatures. Some of it looks good and some of it doesn't hit too well. Unfortunately, the monster design is so wild, it just works. These things are ugly and they do this jittery thing with their heads, this spasm-like movement with it right before they attack, and it's super gnarly. And honestly, it's worth the price of admission just to see that wicked like head snap. I'm surprised they don't have neck braces, all of them, because there's just like, it's so hard to describe, but it's so effective. And it's just, it kind of hits you really like in a really primal way, in a visceral way, because it's such an awkward kind of shot, an awkward movement, that it's jarring and very scary, honestly. And especially once they do that, they have some other cool things they do that I will not spoil here. So go catch this movie just for this, because I think it is worth watching for these creatures and the action and what they do here. And for horror, this movie gets a solid 2. This was a good watch. The fact that we actually have a monster in this movie is awesome. I was worried that the threat was going to be the complete opposite of what we got. And luckily I was wrong. We actually got monsters, and not just one, not just two, but a whole clan of them pretty much. And they do some really cool stuff. They transform and do stuff together, really hard to explain. It's very visual, and it's something that's just very striking. And when you see it on film, it's like, whoa, what is going on here? As mentioned, there is heavy CG because of these monsters, but I think because of just how wild the situation is, how wild these animals work and how they operate, it works, man. It really does work, and it clicks well. Somehow it happens. Somehow this worked out. But besides that, the movie is a little slower than I would like it to be. Especially in the middle, I feel that they could have added some more monster action to fluff it up a bit. But other than that, it was a good movie. I recommend it. And for legacy, this movie gets a solid 1. So to tally it up, Arcadian received a 1 for production, a 1 for story, a 2 for ensemble, a 2 for horror, and a 1 for legacy, bringing the score to a total of 7. This was a good movie. As I mentioned before, I am really surprised and very happy that we did get the monsters that were advertised in the trailer. As I mentioned before, I do get concerned when movies like this pop up and there are very little monsters, very little monster action, or no monsters at all. I've seen that before and it's absolute garbage. I'm glad this movie did not do that. In fact, they did the opposite. They were like, you guys want some monsters? We will give you monsters. And that's what we got. We got a crap load of monsters in the third act, and they do not disappoint. The kill count is super high. It's brutal. It's primal. It's visceral. These things are ugly. They hand stretch, nail stretch, all kinds of crazy, ugly, gnarly things happen with these creatures. And this is why I recommend this as a watch, because of those awesome monsters. Go watch Arcadian in theaters now.
Can you tell me what time it is?
And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you for watching Scary World. Don't forget to drop a comment down below and hit the thumbs up on the video. Most importantly, do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have spoiler-free horror movie reviews for you guys, dropping every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Along with that, we have the official CorpseFeed podcast, The Morgue, dropping every Tuesday anywhere you get your podcast streams. Plus, you can see the video edition here on YouTube as well, folks. We are on all social streams, so go like, subscribe, and share over there. And we will see you on Monday for another episode. And remember, it's a scary world out there, but we are here to walk you through it.
I just wanted to say goodbye.